Watch the gate.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Cablevision Race Day here at the BMX Racing track in Shoreham. We are only 200 yards from Route 25A. Doesn't seem that way, though, since we're hidden in the woods. I'm Walt Feller. Our expert commentator this afternoon is Joe Trapp. Joe is also a national official of BMX Racing. Joe, what are we in store for this afternoon?
Well, what we're going to see is the third set of motos. There are 45 races today. They've already run twice. The winner of the third set plus the first two will determine the overall champion of the day.
One of the beauties of the track here is for the fans. It's great to watch because you're on the infield as opposed to, say, a horse race where you surround the track. Here you're on the infield right between the start and finish.
Yeah, the track was purposely designed that way because all of the supporters are the parents and friends of the racers, and we wanted to give them a chance to look at the entire race, not just one portion of it.
So from the infield, Walt Feller and Joe Trapp will be back with the start of BMX Racing right after this. BMX Racing track in Shoreham. We're set for Moto 13. This is the 6- and 7-year-olds. Expert novice. We have 3 races in this moto. Jonathan Artist, Ken Kelly, and Louis Stevenson. After the first 2 motos, Jonathan Artist is in first. He's taken first in both motos, and he's looking for a perfect here. Joe, about the track a little. The first turn, a sweeping turn.
Right, it is a wide sweeping turn. In fact, in some cases, some people consider it 2 turns. We consider it a 1 wide sweeping turn. A BMX track must have a minimum of 3 turns on it to meet the requirements of the national office.
They've hit the wide turn. They're coming into the second turn now. And Louis Stevenson and Jonathan Artist out in front. Leading right now is Louis Stevenson. Louis took second in the first 2 motos as they hit the step up. A step up, Joe.
Yeah, a step up is a jump where you go up, you level off, and you go up a second time. That's one of many different types of jumps. As they come into the final turn and come out to the final straightaway, they hit a decision maker. A decision maker meaning a jump where you can take either the left or the right side, and depending on which side you take, the jump is different.
All right, unofficially now, from our vantage point, Louis Stevenson was the winner, unless there's some sort of disqualification, which we doubt doesn't happen all that often in BMX racing. So Louis Stevenson won the 3rd moto. Now we will move on to Moto 14. This is the 8- and 9-year-olds. Now this is novice. How much difference, say, between a beginner, a novice, an expert?
Okay, a beginner is a rider who's never ridden before. He must win 5 first-place trophies, and then he's moved up into the novice class, which means that they have some experience. So these riders here each have won at least 5 races prior to becoming here. And
go ahead.
If they win 8 more as a novice, they then move into the expert class.
Keith Terra is in the lead right now, and Keith won the first 2 motos, so he's looking for a perfect. He's followed by P.J. Buckley, Kevin Kelly, and Hal Sender, all racing here in our 14th moto. And it looks like Keith Terra will win easily.
Oh, Keith goes down. Hal Sender from Eagle Snacks passes him on the 3rd turn. Now, depending on what Keith does... Oh, Keith takes the 3rd.
Well, I gave Keith the kiss of death there, but we'll see it again. As he hit the decision maker, Keith, who was comfortably out in front, lost control of the bike.
Right, we see that on the replay, and totally wiped out.
What might cause something like that, Joe?
It could be just leaning a little bit too far back as you hit the jump. You lose control of it, and that would cause the front end to come up, and it also is due to the light front end.
We're in the 15th moto. This is the 9- and 10-year-olds. This is expert novice. Our racers are Jonathan Patty, 18P, Kevin Zimmerman, number 14, and Rich Keary. After the first 2, it goes 1, 2, 3, Patty, Zimmerman, and Keary. As they come into the second turn, and out of the second turn, in the lead is Jonathan Patty.
Right, Jonathan Patty's in the lead, and you'll see that Rich Keary is riding a 2 New York plate. That means in New York State, in his age class, he is rated the number 2 rider.
The numbers on the bikes, 19 and P.
Okay, the first 2 numbers are the serial number from the NBL, and the P is for the initial of his last name.
So there you see 18P, I believe I said 19, Jonathan Patty, and he wins the 3rd moto, so he gets a perfect. So Jonathan will either be going home with the trophy or more points.
That's correct.
He may be adding up towards his season total. Moto 16 now, 10-year-olds. This is expert novice proficiency. We have Eddie Weisenbach, Tommy Bavona, Jay Healy, John LaFemina, and Frank Orlando. After the first 2 motos, Thomas Bavona is in the lead, followed by Frankie Orlando.
Bavona and Orlando are both equal competent riders, and you'll see the lead go back and forth all day long between these 2.
What about the bike size? Which regulations?
Okay, they're riding a 20-inch bike. It's 20-inch wheelbase, and they ride these bikes. The bike is set up dependent on the size of the rider. All wheelbases are the same, but the smaller riders tend to have a lighter, smaller bike.
In the lead right now, Tommy Bivena. He took 2nd in the first moto, then 1st in the 2nd moto. Got a close race as they hit the final curve and come up to the decision maker. Trying to pass on the outside, Orlando.
Just doesn't have enough track to do it.
Tommy Bavona wins the 3rd moto and will probably go on to win for the day in his class. We move on to Moto 17, age class 11. And these are novice riders: Brian McGuire, Lee Hill, Keith Wilcha, Michael O'Hagan, and Corey Hurd, that is, and Corey is in the lead after 2 motos. He too going for a perfect.
Right, and Corey's in the lead right now as they go into the first turn. Corey will be turning expert very soon. He's coming up on his 8th win. I don't know exactly when, but he is a long-time rider here at Shoreham. He's been racing about 2 years.
Someone who's not involved in sees BMX racing, how do they get started?
Okay, basically you go down to your bike store, you either have a BMX bike that you've had in the house or you buy one, and you come on down to the track. We'll give you all the information you need. To start racing as a beginner, you just need a long sleeve shirt, a long pair of pants, and a helmet. The helmet is probably the most expensive piece of gear. And you can use either a motorcycle helmet or you can buy a special BMX helmet.
Corey pulls off a perfect as he finishes 1st in all 3 motos. So it's a good afternoon for Corey Hurd. Moto 18, ages 11 and 12. Again, expert novice, Benjamin Downs, Larry Latini, Casey O'Rourke, Ari Sonnenberg, and Chris McGuire.
O'Rourke is out in front now. He's had some problems the first 2 motos. He took 2/3, but now he's in 1st. He must have changed his gearing.
Why would you do that?
You asked about the bike types. There's no change of gearing while you're racing. What you have to do is actually take your chain off and replace the front gear to change your gearing. Now Casey slipped back into 2nd.
So in the lead right now is Benjamin Downs. And he clears the decision maker easily and will come on home with the win. Benny Downs, who took 2nd in the first moto and 1st in the 2nd moto, puts back-to-back wins together. And we move on now to Moto 19, 12-year-olds. These are the experts, only 3. We'll get a good look at Sean Bronson, Joshua Lacanis, and Scott Montgomery. They finished 1, 2, and 3. Montgomery, Lacanis, and Bronson in the first 2 motos.
Right.
We have someone down on the track which is temporarily holding up the start of the moto, trying to figure out which rider that is. We cannot get a number on him right now. Danning tending to the injured rider. About the EMTs here every day?
Right. Every race, it's required by the NBL that for practice and race days that you have an EMT at the track. EMT being the only paid member at the track, and he certifies to make sure that there are no serious injuries and takes care of any injuries that we have.
Takes a lot of people to put together a track like this. A little background, Joe, on how the racing got started here at the Shoreham track and who all is involved.
Okay, the racing's been going on here at Shoreham since about 1983. Before Shoreham opened, the track was located at Parr Meadows, which is right off exit 68 on the Long Island Expressway, and the town of Brookhaven gave the Shoreham Parents Association some land in the park area, and we developed it into a track. And it's all done by volunteer work. There's no paid members except, as I said earlier, the EMT.
That was Chris McGuire, who went off under his own power after he was tended to by the EMT. So we now move on to Moto 19. Again, once again, finishing first, second, and third in the first two motos, Montgomery, Lacanis, and Bronson. Montgomery, number 32, Joshua Lacanis, number 1, and Sean Bronson, 01B.
Montgomery riding for C&H out of Virginia. He seems to be the dominant force in this class. He has 2 for wins going into this, and barring any major problems like we had at the finish line the last time, he should easily win this moto.
Montgomery doing a nice move as he hit the second hill, coming up and over. Now he goes into the step up. Scott Montgomery looks like he's in total control. What about the aerodynamics of body? Do you want to be bent over all the time? Are there times when you do come up like Scott did as he approached the decision maker?
Right. Depending on what the jump is, you want to hit it with the weight over the back wheel as much as possible to give you the most control when you land. Basically, you want to keep as little wind resistance against the bike and the body as possible.
Interesting, too, looking at BMX riders as we hit into moto number 20. No certain body types where you like tall, lean. You were a former basketball coach, tall, lean players, or maybe solid weightlifters for football. No set pattern for bike riders.
No, really, what you're looking for and what the rider has to develop is strong legs. Regardless of what the rest of the body looks like, the legs are going to carry him through the track. It's almost like running a long-distance race where the runner has to train to build his legs in shape.
Chuck Johnson takes it from start to finish here in Moto 20, 13-year-olds novice division, and he took first in both the first 2 motos. So once again, another sweep as Chuck Johnson wins it. We move on now to Moto 21. This is 14-year-olds. We have a number of experts up there, the expert proficiency. Robbie Lewis, Ronnie Gasca, Brent Dowling, and Stephen Boyle were listed to start, but obviously one is not in the race since we only have 3 on the track as they hit the first wide sweeping turn.
That's Stephen Boyle out in front, followed by Ronnie Gasca, who races for Whitman's. Ronnie making a move now, taking over first place, showing you why he is national number 7.
Where on the track can you make moves? Can you take the lead?
Basically, the easiest part is in a turn. If you dive under somebody who's gone high, you'll have an easy shot at it, and at a straightaway if you're a power rider.
Unofficially, Ronnie Gasca wins it, so Ronnie took control of the lead. So vital to get off to a good start, but Ronnie did come from behind. He was in second for a while, took the lead, and he wins Moto 21. Moving on now to Moto 22, Richie I, Danny Green, Mike Shine, and Jared Stritt. Richie I, we heard his name a number of times in the first 2 motos.
Yeah, Richie happens to be a prejudiced favorite of mine. Richie races for me. I run the Eagle Snacks team, distributors for Long Island, and Rich is a 15 novice. Right now he's running national in 3rd place, and next week he'll be going to Louisville, Kentucky for the Grands to determine his final overall national standing.
When you say you run the team, Joe, what does that involve? Not just you yourself, but I know a number of parents take responsibilities with the kids.
Okay, it's transporting the kids to and from races. The sponsor is responsible for providing them with a uniform, and it's just helping them out in general as a team, because even though it's an individual sport, you can also have team entries where your team is going against another team. And here today we've seen about 3 or 4 teams. You've seen Whitman's, you've seen C&H, Velocity, Eagle Snacks.
Moto 23, after the first 2 motos, number 24, Jeff Suarez, is in first place. And Suarez looking to make a perfect.
Suarez riding for Velocity Racing out of Maryland. Oh, it swooped on the turn. It looks, I believe that's Keith Bedell. Yes, Keith Bedell swooped him.
Now was swoop being passing?
Swooping means passing again underneath, as I had said before. If the rider goes high, you can make that move underneath and swoop past him on a turn.
So Keith Bedell swooped Jeff Suarez, as we see a future BMXer on the sidelines.
Yes, the sport is open to girls and boys. A reminder that anybody can race, girls or boys.
Very family-oriented sport in many ways.
Yeah, the family is your best supporter of the rider. They come down, they make picnics out of it. We have people that cook here at the track. If you don't want to make a picnic, we also have our own track food service where you can buy food.
Moto 24, we have Vinny Furno, Austin Gallia, and Sam Thompson. Thompson won the first two motos. He is number 55, Gallia 97, and Furno number 39. Close race between the three as they hit the final curve. Coming down the home stretch, Thompson in the lead, hits the decision maker, has a little trouble, tries to get past at the last second, Vinny Furno. Not enough, too little, too late for Furno.
As we say in the sport, if the track was 10 feet longer.
Moto 25 gives us Sean Richards, Tom McLaughlin, Keith Mulligan, Eddie Haller. These are a number of experts, 16-year-olds, so they've been around for a while.
Sean Richards had a little trouble in his second moto. In fact, he fell and didn't finish the race. He's also racing for C&H. He's probably the strong rider in this moto. And
all right, after the first two, Tommy McLaughlin in the lead. McLaughlin number 93.
Richards passed him. Richards now over in the lead. McLaughlin had the fast start, and then Richards took over.
A number of the better riders, it seems, hit the hill and they turn their wheel as they're in midair.
Well, that's what's known as a little bit of style. It doesn't do anything to help you win the race.
Coming home with the lead and the win, Sean Richards takes it.
Set him up.
Moto 25 won by Sean Richards. As we head into Moto 26. Now these, we go from 16-year-olds to the previous race to 5 and under. Beginner proficiency. Gotta love the size of these kids.
These are what we call our pocket rockets. This is the future of BMX right here on the track. We have 2 4-year-olds in this race and 2 5-year-olds.
What about bike sizes now for, say, a kid who's 5? Is it similar to kids who are 16?
It's the same 20-inch wheelbase. Sometimes you'll see them with a 16-inch wheelbase, but I believe everybody on the track today does have a 20-inch wheelbase. And it's just that the bike is set up smaller. The seat is lowered as low as possible. The frame is a little bit shorter than your standard frame. There's 3 sizes of frames: mini, standard, and pro. A pro would be for the bigger riders, and a mini would be for the smaller riders.
Looks like Brian Chin has a comfortable lead. Brian wearing number 93C. Again, the C representing the first initial of his last name. Brian comes right through the decision maker. And coasts home. Brian Chin with a good afternoon as he wins all 3 of his motos for the beginner 5 and under proficiency. Here we see one of the riders in the 5 and under getting assistance from one of the parents. That is Michael Cullen, just 5 years old. When in doubt, take the shortcut. Moto 27, not much older. These kids only 6-year-old, a number of beginners. We have a number of girls in this one. Teresa Ann McCaffrey, number 46M. Leading after the first 2 motos is Billy Colazzo III. Billy won the first 2 motos. And it is Billy again in the lead.
Right, these are our 6-year-old beginners. These have a little bit more experience. There is at least one 15-inch or 16-inch wheelbase in this race.
We touched on earlier, Joe, how you get involved as far as getting a bike coming down to the track. What parents might like to know, how much?
Well, actually, most kids do have a BMX-style bike at home, but the basic bike you can buy for about $220 if you have nothing. Now, if you really want to get expensive, you can go all the way up to $1,200, $1,300 for a bike, but you don't need that to get started, and you really don't need that to race.
You told a great story to me before we came on about how you got involved in this as a basketball coach, and you heard what one of your kids paid for a bike.
Right. I was coaching basketball, and one of the kids came up to me and said, "Mr. Trapp, look at my new bike. How much you think it cost?" And being an old Schwinn tank rider, I said, "Oh, about $100. And the boy said, "Oh, I paid $500. And I looked at it, I said, "I didn't pay $500 for my first automobile." And he explained that it was a racing bike, and he invited me to come down and watch him race, and that's how I got invited in the sport.
Do you still have that first auto? That's what we want to know.
No, I don't.
Hey, my first auto wouldn't make these hills, as we are in Moto 28, the beginner class. Age is 7-year-old. And in the lead right now is Matty Wood. Matty won the first 2 motos. In second place, Danny Black and Michael Scoma. In the lead by at least 20 yards, though, Matty Wood.
Yeah, Wood has an easy win here. He's been winning well all day. And again, he'll be moving up very shortly to the novice class.
Just waiting for the starting time.
Another one of our younger riders.
Padding, shoulder pads, I noticed some kids, first of all, I guess the first thing you notice about BMX riders with the helmets, some kids have more or less what you might call face guards, others opt for just like a mouthpiece.
Right, it's mandatory in the NBL that you wear face protection, and it could be either what they call a mouth trap or a full face helmet. A lot of the riders that have been riding for a while prefer the mouth trap rather than the full face because they feel the full face helmet gives them too much visibility cut down. They can't see the track as well.
We are in Moto number 29. In the lead, Brian Kent. Brian took the first two motos. Teddy Turner, who was second in the first two, again is second. So we may have identical finishes here in the third moto for Moto 29, the 8 years old beginner proficiency.
Right, any people watching this on television who would like to know more about racing, all you have to do is take the Long Island Expressway to exit 68, come north on the William Floyd Parkway to the very end, and the track is right there. And every Sunday we'll be racing, registration from 9 to 10:30 with the gate dropping around 11:30.
Jeff Herzog now finishing the race. Jeff took that's Michael Alfio. Michael Alfio took a spill and he completes Moto 29. We move on now to Moto 30. 9-year-old beginner class. After the first two motos in the lead, Ben Slovak, followed by Justin Mistelli and John Lesio.
One thing you're noticing is that they do race age and classification. In other words, the 9-year-old beginners normally race other 9 beginners. The only time we'll combine classes is if we have less than 2 riders in any one age group of proficiency. So
while we've seen too, Joe, a number of riders, everyone we've seen has been between the ages of 5 and 16. However, you can be as old as 40, 50 years old and get out on the track.
Right. A little bit later, we're going to see the cruiser classes. The cruisers are the bigger bikes. They have a 24-inch wheelbase, and they were designed actually for the older rider. And the oldest class in racing is 42 and over. And
so Justin Mistelli gets past at the final decision maker by John Lesio. We have 2 55s in this race, John Lesio and Ben Slovak. And I believe is John, or that may be Legio.
That's where the L and the S come in, so that the scorers can determine who's who.
Moto 31 at the starting gate.
Speaking of
10-year-old beginners.
Speaking of scorers, we have 3 of them at the finish line. There's always an odd number, so that there would never be a tie. If we had 4 scorers, it would be labeled that 2 scorers saw one person and 2 saw the other. With an odd number of scorers, we're always going to get a final finish.
About the starting gate, magnetic opening.
Right. It, again, required by the NBL is that you have a magnetic gate that drops on the green light. And magnetic meaning that as soon as the electricity is released to the gate will drop. There's no wait as there would be with a latch gate.
Moto 31 just about set to get underway. In the lead after the first 2 motos, Eddie Rorison, followed by Keith Gustafson and Warren Coyle. Now, during times of the afternoon, we've seen 3, 4, sometimes 6 on the track at the same time. Maximum is 8.
Maximum for any one moto would be 8, and the minimum for any one moto would be 3, except in cruiser and girls classes. Cruiser and girls, you can have 2 riders constitute a moto.
Eddie Rorison again with the lead as he was in Moto 2 when he won it. Followed by Keith Gustafson. Closing quickly, hitting the home stretch. Eddie Rorison hangs on to win.
The one thing about the bikes is you'll notice the beginner's bikes probably weigh in at about 15 to about 20 pounds.
Set 'em up.
As a rider gets more proficient and the parents get involved, what they try to do is lighten the bikes up a little bit. We're looking at the starting lights right now. You'll see the red light. When the starter starts, it goes red, yellow, yellow, green, and the gate drops as that green light hits. Now this again is 11 beginner class.
Mentioned briefly before padding with the helmets. What about any sorts of shoulder pads, elbow pads, knee pads?
Basically, it's just the long sleeve shirt and long pair of pants. Now you'll see some riders are in actual uniforms. Now the uniforms will have elbow pads in them, will have knee pads at the knees. But basically, just the long pants and long sleeve shirt will get you started in the sport.
Moto 32. Jonathan Acosta in the lead. He took second in the first two motos. Mike Watchholder wins it though. Mike has a perfect on the day, winning all three motos.
Set 'em up.
Right, a perfect meaning that you've won every race that you've raced for the day in your class.
Well, here it is, head-to-head competition. 16-year-old beginners, Moto 33. Our two riders are John Hunt and Chris Solgen. And they went back and forth as Solgen won the first, and then Hunt won the second moto. So this is it, the decision maker right here. Not to get confused with our last hill on the track.
Right, this is the determining race, as we would say.
In the lead right now, Johnny Hunt, number 83H.
With the 16 beginners, you're never too old to start the sport. Whether you're 4 years old and you want to get started, or whether you're 16 or 17. We do have a beginner's class for you, and we do welcome you to come on down and find out all there is to know about BMX.
So John Hunt takes Chris Solgen head-to-head. After finishing behind Solgen in the first moto, he comes back to win the second two. Moto 34 off and riding, 17 years and older. This is beginner proficiency. Our three races, Languez Perez, 37P, Jason Pellegato, 54P, and Chris Halds, 09H.
In the regular 20-inch class, the 17 and over is the highest class. So if an adult wanted to race a 20-inch bike, they would have to race in the 17 and over class. If they decide to race a cruiser, though, the oldest class is 42 and over.
Had hits the final hill and cruises into the win, followed by Pellegato, then Perez. So Chris Hald on the day finished second, first, and first for a good afternoon for Chris. Moto 35, again, three racers, 16 and over. Open proficiency being?
Okay, open proficiency being whether you're a beginner, a novice, or an expert, you can race in this open class. So it's a chance for people who are getting ready to move up to see how they rate against the next class up.
Our three racers, Todd Kay, who finished first in the first two motos, followed by Eddie Holler and Vinny Ferno. That's the way they finished also. Holler and Ferno second and third. Coming into the final turn, heading for the decision maker, Todd Kay in the lead again, followed closely by Holler. Holler doesn't have enough to pass him though. And Kay wins back to back to back. 1, 2, 3, 3 times in a row. Kay, Holler, and Ferno. Moto 36, one of our larger motos on the afternoon, as we have 7 riders: Richie I, Brad Brock, Mark Spiegel, Brent Dowling, Ronnie Gasca, Mike Shine, and Al Blanco.
Again, these are novice riders and experts and beginners. And we talked about Rich I a little bit earlier. Rich is getting ready to turn expert. In fact, he will be turning right after the Grand Nationals next weekend. And it's giving him a shot to see how he's going to do against the expert riders like Ronnie Gasca. Ronnie, again, national number 17 expert class.
Well, that's who's in the lead right now, Ronnie Gasca.
Again, Ronnie Gasco riding the Whitman's color, which is a bike shop out of Ohio, and I riding the Eagle Snacks colors, which is the distributorship for Eagle Snacks on Long Island.
Now, not to confuse anybody, you say shops out of Ohio, out of Maryland, but most of the kids riding this afternoon anyway are from Suffolk County.
Right, they all live in the area, but they're sponsored. If they're a good rider, a national bike shop who travels to all the nationals will pick them up as a sponsor and let them race their colors.
And a sponsor does what for the rider?
A sponsor usually provides them with a uniform. Sometimes it's bike parts, sometimes it's bicycles, either at cost or below cost. and sometimes they give them entry fees to pay for the races that they race.
Moto 37, Terry Wenzel in the lead. Terry's already won 2 motos on the afternoon, followed by Larry Lentini and Ari Sonnenberg. Open proficiency. And Terry took it from start to finish as he cruises home with the win. Terry Wenzel,
making it look
first
easy.
and first. A lot of bumper stickers and different types of what you might call graffiti at times on the plates of the front of the bikes.
Right, it's the way the riders have of showing who they like and what companies they like. The problem with that in some cases is it interferes with the scorers. The scorers can't see the number on the plate if they have too many stickers in the place.
Again, head-to-head competition. We are in Moto 38, 8 and 9-year-old class. Hal Sender versus Justin Mastelli. Hal won the first 2 motos.
Hal again racing for the Eagle Snacks distributors on Long Island. Eagle Snacks is Anheuser-Busch's way of getting into the sport of BMX, and they lean into each other. If you notice that, they were leaning towards each other, trying to pass each other at this point, and unfortunately, Justin came out the loser in that.
But now, is there any sort of ruling? Who leaned into who?
There was no throwing of an elbow, and there was no throwing of a foot. Now, it's up to the corner marshal, who wrote down, and I did see him write something down now, if Justin protests, they would go to the corner marshal and get his decision.
Unofficially, Hal Sender. There you see one of the corner marshals. Among the people working this afternoon, I believe that is not a corner marshal, my mistake.
That's a photographer trying to get a picture, and he didn't know he was in our guy's way.
Anyway, among those working the track, you have a starter, a stager, and a corner marshal. If you would explain the 3, Joe.
Right. The stager is responsible for getting the riders in the right moto at the right time. The starter actually does the starting, makes sure that nobody starts before the light turns green. And then the corner marshals check for any fouls that are committed on the track. A foul being throwing an elbow, throwing a foot, directly actually aiming your bike into another rider.
Head-to-head competition. Jonathan Artist in the lead, Moto 39 versus Louis Stevenson. They finished 1 and 2, then 2 and 1. So this is it.
Again, the deciding moto.
Artist in the lead by about 5-10 yards, and he'll win it. Jonathan Artist, 2 first on the day in head-to-head competition. And he goes home the winner. Moto 40, 10 and 11-year-olds, 4 racers in this moto. Corey Hurd, Eddie Weisenbach, Jay Healy, and Warren Coyle. Jay Healy won the first 2 motos.
And he's ahead right now, doing it up again for C&H out of Virginia.
Corey Hurd, his closest competitor after the first 2 motos. Healy 74H. And again, followed by Hurd, 94H. Into the decision maker. Healy takes it with ease, has time to look back. They say don't look back in baseball.
You're not supposed to look back in racing either. If you're very close, if you turn your head, it actually takes a pedal and a half off your positioning by turning your head to look back.
As we head into Moto 41, Joe, can you compare a little, say, BMX racing with other sports, say, like baseball, basketball?
Well, the big advantage of BMX is it's more of an individual effort. Even though we talk about riders being on a team, the rider is out there, he's going to win the trophy based on his own performance. He doesn't have to worry about, did the guy in left field miss a ball? Did somebody not get a hit? And also, it's very rewarding instantaneously. The riders will get their trophies immediately after their race. They don't have to race an entire season to get their trophies.
A couple of pros out there, Justin Lofredo and Scotty Montgomery. Lofredo with a nice little twirl as he hit the second hill after the second turn. And the 2 fellas just cruise in. Lofredo and Montgomery.
Oh, look at this. They're trying to get the scorers at the finish line.
Of course, they ride on the same team.
And again, today is just a tune-up race for the Grand National, which will take place on Labor Day weekend.
Moto 42, Keith Mulligan, Eric Wager, and Sean Richards. Richards in first after the first 2 motos.
You know, we were talking about being sponsored, but the majority of riders here are not sponsored, and it's not a requirement to race that you have a sponsor. Mom and Dad are probably the biggest sponsors in America. Team Mom and Dad. And most of your riders here, about 90% of them, don't have a sponsor. So don't think that if you don't have a sponsor, you can't come down and race. You don't need a sponsor. You don't need a fancy uniform. You just need the willingness to come out and have some fun.
Sean Richards took that one from start to finish, Moto 42. Sean Richards with the perfect on the day, winning all 3 of his motos. Moto 43, 18 and 20. We've got the cruisers in here, so we've got possibly some older fellows and definitely some bigger bikes.
Right. These bikes, again, have the 24-inch wheelbase, where everything we've seen up until this point was a 20-inch wheelbase. These bikes were designed for the older riders, and when they first came out, only 16-year-olds and older could ride them. Now you have as young as 9-year-olds riding them.
In the lead after the first 2 motos, Eddie Ferry, followed by Jimmy Panzer.
Jeff Hurley's out there front right now. He's again doing it up for the local Eagle Snacks team. I don't know if he'll have enough points to actually win it.
He does win the 3rd moto, though, followed by Eddie Ferry. It's possible, though, that Ferry will win the overall competition.
Right. You got to remember that we take the finishes from the first 2 motos, add them to the 3rd moto, and that determines the actual finisher.
Cruiser competition, Gary Hurd and David Keary. Of course, David's dad, Bob, very influential here in BMX racing.
He's the president of the Shoreham BMX Association, and he also, well, no, he's not the president, pardon me. He runs the track. He's track director here at Shoreham.
And also state treasurer of BMX racing.
Right, for the New York State Series. Now, this is our 21 to 27. This is our oldest class of the day.
And David is in the lead. David took the first 2 motos. What about practicing? The track is only open once a week. How do these kids prepare during the week?
Okay, practice is done before the races at the track, and what the kids have done, because the track isn't available during the weekdays, is they've built their own track. Out here, there's one in Clinton, which is in Port Jefferson, and in Massapequa, there's one they call Scorpion Hills, where the Nassau riders practice.
Not unlike some kids who you see built these skateboard tracks now that you see becoming so popular in their own backyards.
This is correct. What they do is they find an empty lot, they build a couple of jumps and hills, and they practice on it.
Okay, so David Keary did take Moto 44. Moto 45 now, after the first 2 races. Eric Wolfert is in the lead. 6 riders in this moto coming down the home stretch. It's Ronnie Gasca in the lead now. Ronnie Gasca will take Moto 3. He finishes about 10 feet in front of Stevie Boyle.
2nd and 3rd place, Boyle and I were very close together.
Moto
look at
45
our starter right now. That's Bill Thompson.
Track conditions also. When it rains, the track holds up well. A lot of problems?
Right. The track is holds up pretty good. We can run in a very light mist if we have to. And then after racing, after it rains for a while, we would have to close the track. But it does dry out pretty quick, and that's because of all the work that's put into the track during the off period.
Now, throughout the afternoon there, you see one of the fellas slip and lose control. There were a number of corner marshals watering down certain parts of the track.
That's done to hold the dust down. The biggest problem on the track is loose dust, and it actually acts like a cover, and the riders can skid on that. So that by putting the water down, it actually tamps the dust down to make it a little bit harder.
All right, we've completed 45 motos. We have some mains coming up, 6 very important mains here at the BMX track in Shoreham, and we'll be back with the 6 mains right after this. Of the afternoon, we've thrown a lot of different BMX terms at you, like moto and swoop. However, to give you a little background of the BMX racing here in Shoreham and here in Suffolk County, Christy Mason earlier this season did a feature on BMX racing, and we want to bring that to you right now. Christy Mason on BMX racing.
It doesn't matter if they're 4 or 40, male or female. They tear up the track with amazing speed, and for the unfamiliar viewer, amazing nerve. BMX, bicycle motocross racing, is their sport, and they take it very seriously.
It is scientific because when a rider practices, he sees the condition of the track, especially if it's first time, the different hills and the different turns, and he may change his gearing on the bike to gear up or to gear down to make it easier or harder to pedal.
BMX racing is definitely a family affair, especially for those who travel to compete. 13-year-old Tim Strzelicki is recently back from Brazil, a world champion gold medal winner in his class.
It was just great because I knew I won and my mom was happy, everyone from the United States was happy, I was happy. It was just the greatest feeling of my life.
It's a family-type atmosphere. It's a family-type sport. Everyone's involved. The kids enjoy the sport, and with their peers and everything, they really have a good time.
I like to see the children do it. I think it's cute when I see the little ones. I love to watch the little ones. I think they're adorable.
Starting out.
Yeah, the starting out ones. Sometimes they have to be helped to be pushed up the hills. They can't make it. I just think it's a great experience for all of them.
And these parents say they take comfort in the fact that BMX racing is as safe as it possibly can be. Each bike is checked before every moto. All bikers must wear helmets, and
They must have a pad set on their bike. That's 3 pads, one on the handlebars, one on the crossbar, and one on the neck of the bike. So if a rider does fall, he prevents any serious injury. We also check that there are no loose parts on the bike, that the hand grips have no tears in them or no cuts in them, and we also check that the tires and brakes are working.
but just in case, there's always an emergency medical technician standing nearby.
They wear the proper safety equipment, which is mandated in the sport, and they just take it easy at first, which is hard because they're young kids. But if they go with the sport and go with the fall, very little risk of injury.
I fall a lot of times, believe me.
But when they fall, they get right back up again, all in the true spirit of the sport. And there's tons of spirit here as well. This track is run solely by volunteers. Each biker pays an $8 weekly fee, which pays for track maintenance and insurance. And the money that's made at the concession stand pays for a lavish end-of-the-season dinner for the bikers and their families. And the rent here is pretty reasonable as well. Shoreham BMX rents the land from Brookhaven Town for $1 a year. For Summer Sports Night, I'm Christy Mason.
So if anything, you're a little more familiar now with BMX racing. Walt Fowler and Joe Trapp, we are about to enter the last 6 races of the afternoon, the mains. Now, Joe, a main as opposed to a moto, we explained to people earlier in the day what a moto is, as far as it's much like a time trial or a heat in track and field. A main, though.
Okay, a main is where the riders from the motos, where there were more than 8 riders, have won. The top 4 riders from each moto now go in competition against each other. So you have 2 motos coming together to form one main.
And in our first main, this is also known as Moto 101, but to make things easier, in our first main, we have 8 riders, and we have Jamie Murphy, Rich Fawcett, Hank Tegron, Jesse Lapp, Michael Canis, Joe Rosito, Joey Manuel, and Christopher Matheson. Any names stick out there as a possible winner?
No, they're all new riders, and I'm not too familiar with them.
12-year-old beginner proficiencies. In the lead right now, looking good, is Joey Manuel, who won his earlier moto. Manuel hits the final turn, a good 20 yards in front. If he stays under control, he should win this one easily. And it is Joey Manuel all the way. Takes the first main. Moto number 102, our second main, 13-year-olds beginner class, Mike Loferno, Danny Bailey, Terry Wenzel, Danny Silvestro, Vinny Ciccone, Leo Sampson, Kevin Manfredo, and Michael Drake.
Both Wenzel and Manfredo had perfects in their motos today going into the main. So they both have 3 firsts, and now they're going in against head-to-head against each other, and we'll see if either one of them wins it or somebody comes out of left field.
They hit the first hill. Getting into the first wide turn. About 10 yards between the leader, Terry Wenzel, at the point. Terry Wenzel leads Leo Sampson.
And again,
going into the final turn.
Wenzel having a perfect in his set of motos early today, so this will make a full perfect if he wins the main.
Closing the gap is Sampson. He hasn't closed it enough, though, and passing Sampson at the end, possibly passing Sampson, was Kevin Manfredo. He and Sampson finished neck and neck for second and third. As the final rider comes across in the second main here at the Shoreham track. The start of the track, Joe. Up to the first hill, a table setter?
It's called a tabletop. A tabletop being a jump with a slope, a flat surface, and then a slope on the back end of it. You can see now some of the people actually starting to leave as they have already received their trophies in the background in the parking lot. So we're just waiting for these mains now. Evidently somebody's down or in the track, or?
We are waiting for the beginning of the third main. There's racing here at Shoreham from roughly from April to November. However, Joe, you do a lot of traveling during the course of the year also.
Right. During the summer season, we race Tuesday nights, and that's because on the weekends, we're traveling to all national races. I just got back from Canada this week, and the week before I was in North Carolina with the race.
And you're eventually headed for Louisville, Kentucky, where the Grands are placed. Each year, how many kids from Suffolk County might go to the Grand Nationals?
We have about 50 kids going from the track this year, all in contention for a national number in their age group.
I assume they don't bike ride to Louisville, do they?
Nah, the majority of them will go out by car. Some of them will fly. And this is our 14 beginner class. We have one person with the perfect going into this race, and that is Dennis Sigillo.
Danny Sigillo, Marty Siganak, Brian Maloney, Danny Lewis, David Drange, Joey LaCasalia, Brad Brock, and Sal DeCharry racing in the third main.
Sigillo, who has 2 firsts, is now going for a final win and make it a full perfect of the day.
He leads Joey LaCasalia by about 15 yards, and it is Sigillo winning easily in the third main, beginner class age 14. So another win on the day for Denny Sigillo.
Yeah, we talked about going out to Louisville. There'll be about 3,000 riders, approximately 350 motos. It'll take 2 days to run that race.
How many people you get out there? Total people, riders,
be about 10,000 people between the riders and the parents and the supporters and everybody else who goes on out to have fun.
What would it take to have, say, a national or even a regional event here at Shoreham?
Well, Shoreham had a regional here in October of last year. We had 105 motos. And it looks like, from what I spoke to Mr. Keary, that he's putting in for 1991 to host a full national event, which would be about 170 motos.
What about response from around the county? Are other tracks popping up around the county, or plans of it, or does everyone just come here?